Hey, if you're pregnant over 40, I have just the community for you. It's a private community away from Facebook where women just like you come together to meet and support one another during pregnancy. To sign up for the waitlist, go to over40fabulousandpregnant.com/waitlist and be the first to know when the membership is open. I can't wait to see you inside. Welcome to Over 40 Fabulous and Pregnant. I am your host, Jamie Massey, and you're listening to episode 59. If you're looking for pregnancy stories of women over 40, you've come to the right place. And today on the show, we have Tanika on to share her pregnancy journey at 52. In this episode, she shares that her first pregnancy was at 23, and she is 4 months postpartum during the recording of the show. Tanika is a single mother by choice, so this is her IVF journey. And to answer your question, she did try to use her own eggs. But in the end, she ended up with donor eggs and, of course, donor sperm. She had a great pregnancy. And she says she felt healthier at 52 than she did in her 20s. And I love that. And before we get into her story, y'all, I am running low on stories. So there's a few options. One, please let me know if you would like to share your story or if you know someone. And two, I thought about weekly updates with my pregnancy and include expert interviews. I feel like so many podcasts are expert interviews, but if that's what you want, I want to give you content that you want to listen. That was my original goal, was to interview experts and go along my pregnancy journey. So if that is something that you'd be interested in listening to, I would love to start doing that. And I want to share my second beta numbers if you haven't already seen them on Instagram. My favorite part of sharing this is I love hearing from you. I've had some really great notes and questions. I've answered some questions on donor eggs and I had some money questions. I've even had a request to do a podcast on money mindset during a fertility journey. And I've already been brainstorming that idea like crazy. So if you are interested in hearing that, no problem. I'm all in for that kind of mindset stuff. The day this episode comes out, I am 5 weeks and 3 days. My second transfer with donor eggs was on October 25th, 2023. And my first HGC level 9 days after my transfer was 220. Honestly, I think I'm still in shock about that. And so 3 days after that, I had my second beta. And that Monday, as I'm leaving for work, my husband hoped for an HGC level of 500. And I wanted to be so stingy and go for 600. So at lunchtime, I went to get my blood drawn. This time, she said the nurse would call me before 5 p.m. that day. And back at the office, the call came when someone was at my desk. And I'm pretty sure I said way too quickly, "I'm sorry, I have to take this," and ran out the door with almost pushing the guy over. The funny thing is when I was walking out the back door, I grabbed a pencil with a broken lead. So when she said my HGC level was 827, I wrote it about 1 inch high and a 1/4 inch thickness. But honestly, it was just perfect. Oh my gosh. 827? I can't believe it. I can't believe it. That second beta was on Monday. And the Wednesday, a few days later, I had a call with the doctor. It was pretty short and sweet. She said my numbers looked really great. She told me to continue the meds, the injection, and the pills. She said that brown spotting was normal, but red was not. And I needed to call her if I saw red. Yes, I know the protocol. The cool thing is I haven't been stressing out every time I go to the bathroom. Like all the last times that I was pregnant, every time I would go to the bathroom, I would check my panties. Is there red? Is there red? I just waited. And it's so exciting to say that I don't do that. I don't do that now. But I did ask her about twins. And now it's just kind of a joke that I just keep going on with twins. She told me my HGC level has nothing to do with the number of babies. And the only way to know is with a sonogram. Okay, I didn't want to believe that, but the sonogram is next Tuesday. Oh my gosh, we're like next week status, which is really exciting. And I'm feeling pretty good. I am so tired most of the time. Sometimes I take a nap like before or after dinner, and then I go right back to sleep at 9 o'clock. I have been having a little nausea. It's like I might throw up, but also I'm confident I won't. It's just like I'm always on the verge. And mentally, like I mentioned, I am so much better. And I've had several notes that I need to be a little positive. And if that were so easy all the time. But these numbers are making me feel confident. And the way I feel pregnant, and that is making me feel confident so far. And that feels really good. And the thought that I have been thinking lately is it can be better than I imagined. Because that's the way it's happening. It's so great. And with that, let's get into Tanika's pregnancy at 52. Tanika, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And today we are sharing her pregnancy story at 52. So amazing. Tanika, will you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Sure. I'm 52. I'm a 4-month-old. I was born and raised in Fresno, California, the raising capital of California. And I currently live in Manhattan in New York. And let's see, I'm a project manager by trade. And I have an older daughter. I don't know. I could go on and on. I think that's pretty much a nice bite-sized bit of who I am.
Okay. So you had your daughter at 23. And you're a single mom by choice, which
Yes.
I think is so amazing to your story. Tell us how that got started again. What sparked it?
Yes. So when I decided to re-embark on motherhood, I was 46 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I was single already, and I obviously knew I did not have a lot of time, so I wasn't going to waste time looking for a partner. There was a burning desire in my heart to have another child. I had a feeling like I was meant to shepherd another soul earthside. And so I looked up videos on YouTube. I found other single moms by choice and sort of like how they built their support system and all, what it entailed exactly. And I decided to go for it.
Awesome. And take us through, how did you find your medical provider? How did you start off that process?
Yes. So my employer offers fertility benefits, and we have to go through what is called a Center of Excellence or COE. So I started there of getting the list of what providers would be included. I met with my first provider. I ended up with three different reproductive endocrinologists, by the way. But the
Wow.
very first one I met with recommended we start with IUI. And so I tried that at first. You have to get, when you go, you have that initial consultation, and then there's tons of tests of like, what is your antral follicle count and what is your AMH, which is basically meant to tell what you have left in the reserves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so doing all of those tests and that blood work and everything came back fine. And so that's how we went the route of IUI. However, I mean, I was 46 at that time. Knowing what I know now, I would have gone straight to IVF, but I didn't know. Like, I had done a lot of research about being a single mom by choice, but I hadn't necessarily done a lot of research about reproductive endocrinology or the assisted reproductive technology, right? And so if I could go back and tell my 46-year-old self, I would be like, go straight to IVF. But so we did the IUIs. I did it with donor sperm, did not get pregnant. And so that was 2017. By the end of 2018, I had switched providers and I was off to the races with IVF. I had my first egg retrieval in, oh my God, November. Yeah, it was November. It was actually Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, because I remember I had to do blood work, and getting downtown, there was on Thanksgiving Day was the Macy's Day Parade. And so it was like crazy.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it was like, oh my God. So they wanted to test my HCG to make sure the trigger shot had taken. Mm-hmm. So I had to go down there for the test that Thursday, and then Friday I had my retrieval. Mm-hmm. I only got one egg. They were hoping for like 7, but they had a come to Jesus meeting with me before saying you may get none. Do you still want to go forward? And I did want to go forward. I'd already, paid for the meds, gone through all of the psychological torment of injecting myself. And I was like, let's just go for it. So I did get the one, and we ended up, it fertilized, it took, and then I ended up having a miscarriage.
See, when we did our egg retrieval, I only got one egg, and it never even went to an embryo. So, I'm like, because all you need is one. And
right.
I've heard other doctors say that they won't even do the egg retrieval, but I'm really glad that your doctor actually talked to you to see if you wanted to proceed with it.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a hard conversation, but they were like, you can try. And so I did. At least they were willing to, because I understand what you're saying. Like, some doctors won't. I mean, some doctors won't even because at that point, I think I was 40, I can't remember now. 48. Yeah. Some doctors won't even let you try. Like the clinic before, when I decided to go to IVF, which is why I left, the RE was like, absolutely not. I'm not going to do a retrieval with your own eggs. You need to go straight to donor eggs, which is a hard conversation. Like that is not an easy conversation, right? And so especially, it just felt like it was out of the blue. I think a better approach is to say you are going to become a mom, just not in the way you originally thought you were going to be, right? Because somehow I felt it as a rejection when she told me, like you have to go to donor eggs. I'm not going to use your eggs. Like, a part of me was bad.
Yeah.
And it was just like a huge leap to go to, at that point in my mind, to go to donor eggs. Eventually I did, and I'm holding my 4-month-old now, but that was a journey. And I had said before, like, that's my cutoff. If I can't do it with my own eggs, I'm not going to do it. That was my original stance, right?
Mm-hmm.
But as time goes on, your heart wants what it wants. And that's when I was like, I'm going to become a mom, just in a different way than I thought. But it's the soul that I'm meant to shepherd. So it doesn't, like, the genetics don't matter, right? Like there's a bit of epigenetics, but obviously I know it's still not my genetics, but I got to inform like how his genes would be expressed while he was in utero, right? So that's a good thing. I mean, and not that it's the end all be all, because I understand some women have surrogates, and so they don't have that benefit of their own epigenetics, but they still get to be a mom. Right. Just not how they thought about it when they were a little girl. And so that's a hard conversation. And the way this RE approached it was just like very matter of fact, like, that's how you're going to get your baby. Like, that's it. And so I left and went to another RE who was willing to let me try. And I think, even though it delayed the process, psychologically, that was helpful for me to accept what eventually came to be. Because I feel otherwise I would have always had a doubt.
Yeah. And you advocated for yourself, which is, I think, so important.
Yes, yes. I mean, I quickly became a semi-expert on like the reproductive system and endocrinology and the medicine behind it because I wanted to have a conversation. I didn't want to just be dictated to. So that was also a lesson with that first. So I would just recommend for anybody, like, do your research, understand like what you're up against really because it can be a battle. Like I didn't understand why they called it a journey at first. Oh, it's a journey. I've got the mileage to prove it.
Definitely. Okay, so where are we? Have you gone to donor eggs in this process yet?
Not then. So I was preparing for it. So I did one more retrieval at a totally different RE. That was at my third RE of my own egg. This RE wanted the embryo to go to blastocyst and to be tested, right? That was his criteria. So it went to blastocyst. It was a day 6, but then it arrested. So it was game over, right? And so now I had used another retrieval for my insurance, and the insurance was only going to cover 2. And so that didn't take. So I went back to my second RE. The only reason I went to that one was because they were touting themselves as like an expert for, the advanced maternal age woman to have IVF with her own egg. And so that's why I went. So I immediately ran back to my other RE and said, I want to try donor eggs. At that point, I thought, oh, I'll do a tandem, right? I will do it and I'll have a donor do it. That way I have a backup in case. That was the end of 2019. Well, then 2020, my mom got sick with cancer. My mom's in California. My sister needed help with her. So I went out there. I worked from California. This was before the pandemic had really hit. I mean, we knew it was coming because it had been like overseas and whatnot. But I left like February 11th. I went to California. So then the pandemic hit and there was no, like the reproductive endocrinology was not considered essential if people weren't already in a cycle. So I communicated with them long distance and set up plans for it. But I didn't end up, so I came back to New York in July of 2020. And at that point, I was like, does it make sense to spend the money for 2 retrievals and 2 cycles with medication, right? Because I need to take it and the donor would need to take it. So that's when I decided I should just do the donor. So I went through that process. I was lucky enough that my clinic actually facilitated finding the donor, which was amazing. So I gave them a list of, what attributes I was looking for. They explained to me, and they were like so nice, the whole program. Like they really held my hand. Like the more criteria you have, the more narrowed down your options will be, right? So I decided on my focus was like I wanted someone who had some sort of creative interest. They did not have to have completed college. That wasn't a criteria. I've talked to a lot of women who are like, no, they have to have a college degree. Like they can have it later, right? Because the woman that I ended up choosing was 28. I did not have my college degree at 28. I didn't get it until I was 31. So I was like, it doesn't mean that person is not intelligent because there are other circumstances, right? Especially with women of color, of why they may not have a degree. So I went with that. And then it ended up being, this is going to sound really weird, but the woman that I really liked was dark, was very like melanated, much more melanated than me. So I was concerned because ultimately I wanted the child to look like me. Like I'm already a single mom by choice. I don't want them to go to school and they'll be like, who's that old lady? Is that like your grandma? Is that your nanny? There's like a whole bunch of things that it could have been other than me being the mom. And so I wanted him to look, or them, because I didn't know it was going to be a boy at that point, to look like me. So I switched donors at that point. And it sounds crazy. It worked though. Like I took him home to California and we took a bunch of pictures and everyone's like, oh my God, he looks like you and your family. Not that that's, some people, it doesn't always matter. I don't want to sound shallow. Like I've seen people who've done like donor embryos of different races. I just figured it would be an extra stigma because I'm already a single mom by choice. So I wanted to be aware of like what environment he would be walking into, or she would be walking. I keep saying he because I know now that I have a boy. So I went through all of that. You talk to a geneticist, they look at the genetic profile, or I'm not calling it the right thing, but they take they look at all of their genes. And so like what, if there could be anything, like, for example, me, I am carrier for sickle cell anemia. So they would eliminate, I mean, obviously that was a concern when we were using my eggs, but say if the egg donor had that, they would want the sperm donor to not have that, right? So they make sure it's compatible. They talk about if there's a risk of anything, what the percentages are, and you go, and then it gets signed off on. You also have to talk to a therapist, a psychologist, or I think it might have been a psychologist that I spoke with. She was amazing, but just talking about like how I would tell the child and what those things were. From the research that I've done, it's always best to tell them as early as possible. That's age appropriate, right? More studies have been done for adopted children than donor created children, but it's a similar sort of circumstance. And so studies have shown like the later you tell them, the more resentful they can be. Like they feel like they've been lied to, right? I don't know if you guys have seen the recent, like the Kerry Washington finding out her mother used a sperm donor, and she was upset about it at first, right? And her mother may have never told her. I think she said she had a note in a safe deposit box that she was going to tell that it would be left to Kerry after her mom had passed away. I'm sure there was a lot of shame associated with it. So you have that conversation of like, how are you going to tell them and how are you going to navigate it? I've just been open with it. I've got a YouTube channel. I talk about it on Instagram. I talk about it with my family. Like, I just wanted to normalize it before the child ever got here. And some people don't actually understand that it's not your genetics, but that's a whole other story. But I just didn't want it to be a secret because I think shame can come from that. And I didn't want it to be like the drunk uncle at the Christmas party who is like, oh, your mom is not, so it's just, I don't know if anybody else has a drunk uncle, but I just didn't want it to be a secret. So then we went through the process. I had my first transfer with the donor egg embryo February of 2021, got a positive pregnancy test at home, was super excited. It had worked. I'm getting my take home baby. By the time I got to beta day, my HCG was 1. So that was a no-go. But I was like, it must have been, I just made up a million stories. Like, I'm so close. So straight away, I went into another cycle. 4 cycles later, all negative. So then I'm really sad, right? Because everyone and their mom was like, oh, you just need a donor egg. That's the ticket. It's your eggs. And, you'll have a take home baby as soon as you do that. Now what's the story? Because go ahead.
Sorry, you had 4 cycles back to back. Or transfers back to back.
Back to back, yes. Yeah, I did. And so, no, I take that back. 1 we skipped because after the first failure, they decided to do the endometrium receptivity array, the ERA, to see if maybe my progesterone timing was off. So I had a break after that first one. I just remembered that. And then because it was February, my next one wasn't until March. And I was testing like the week after Easter of that year.
And how old were you?
At that point, I was 49 because my birthday is in May. And so I was just about to turn 50. And I went to Hawaii for my 50th birthday. We did a Hawaii 5-0 party. And I was injecting progesterone there. I came back the day after I returned back from Hawaii was my transfer. It was crazy. I don't recommend it. It was crazy. Yeah. Because like, what if my flight, it's a long way. What if it was so many things, but I was just like, I'm going to live my life. But yeah. So we found out my progesterone timing was off. So we started it earlier. And then we did another cycle.
Going back to your progesterone, what were the clues that made them believe that it was off?
We had tested everything else going into that, right? Like prior in my prep work, we had done, I can't even remember what it's called, but they put me under anesthesia and looked inside of my uterus and they'd found polyps. So I had the polyps removed. So we had like a good receptive uterus. Everything else seemed right leading up to that. And so the next thing was to test the progesterone and see like maybe the timing is off. Maybe we were too early or too late. And that's why, especially because I had the positive, right? So we knew there was some form of implantation that the HCG started to release, right? What is it? Human chorionic gonadotropin, the indicator of pregnancy. So there's something that had happened. And so they thought, well, maybe the timing was off.
Okay.
So after we did that, we found out that I needed it a day early. And so
Okay.
we went into the next cycle. That was the one that we did in March. And it was not, oh, I skipped over the whole thing of like the donor egg retrieval though. We did that in early 2021. That was exciting too. And it was, oh my God, I was like team too much. I was asking like for all her stats as if it was my own egg retrieval. And then the nurse had to like gently walk me back, like, we're not going to go into all of that, like we're going to focus on the results, right? Does it like, even if her like levels are this or that or blah blah blah, she was like, well, let's just focus, because I'm an anxious person, and honestly that probably would have ramped my anxiety up more. So I was glad that she talked me back. But we ended up, after all was said and done, with 10 embryos on ice, like after it was all. And I did not test. I know a lot of people were like, you should blah blah blah, but at that point I was like, I have a 28-year-old donor. I just am not going to. And I mean, that's a whole other issue, but they are testing like the outside, what ultimately becomes the placenta. I just had a lot of issues with it, so I didn't test. And also when I finally got pregnant, I did not do the NIPT. Which is the non-invasive, oh my God, non-invasive, I can't remember, but where they test for, abnormalities. Because I talked it over with the MFM. And I was just like, I'm not going to take action if it comes back because it's not definitive, right? It's predictive testing. I just wanted to go back and say that I got the 10 embryos on ice. So fast forward to the third, didn't work, nothing, like no sign of HCG, went right into the fourth. And then after the fourth, that's when I was like, we've got to try something different. And people always ask, did they tell you why it didn't work? That's not really a thing, right? They can't tell you why it didn't work. First of all, they'd be open to a lawsuit, because if you knew that's why it didn't work, why didn't you stop it ahead of time? But it's not that cut and dry either, right? There's so many variables of like why you don't get a positive. And they tell you going in, like, what's your chance of success, right? Is it 80%? And it's never 100%, right? And so there's no telling you why it didn't work. You can try other things and try to tweak it. At that point, my employer also pays for second opinion. So I went through this company called Grand Rounds, and it was a woman out at UC San Francisco. I had to send all of my medical records, and then she talked to my RE. My RE was a little put off by it, but I was like, it's just, let's all of us put our collective minds together. Let this person objectively just look at the files, and see what she thinks. And so because at that point, that was the chemical was my third miscarriage, because I miscarried in 2018 and I miscarried in 2017 as well, like early 2017 or mid 20 when I started the journey. But so she diagnosed me with recurrent implantation failure. And then she also said, well, you haven't tested the embryo, so that's a possibility. But then that would mean thawing, testing, rethawing. And so she said that should be like a last resort. So those were the things that she came back with. And she said it's either the embryo or it's the environment that it's being transferred into, right? There's something that's not making it receptive. And so after the fourth failure, and that information came in while I was in the middle of my fourth transfer. So it wasn't enough, in the middle of my third. So what we did is we added a anti-steroid or a steroid. We added that to see if that would help, right? My RE added that. That did not help. So then I went to the reproductive immunologist, which costs quite a bit of money, but that ended up being, so they took a test of everything. I had lots of blood work. I can't even remember. I had 2 different tests, and there's some tests that they can't do in New York. So I had to go to New Jersey to get the test done. And it was like a whole to-do. But basically there was inflammation in my uterus, and it was like slight. It wasn't high, but they were saying because of your age and because of all these other things, it's enough to tip you where the embryo is not embedding properly. So I went on a bunch of meds. They recommended IVIG. It took a long time to get that approved by insurance. By the time it got approved, because it involves someone coming to your house and you have to spend like 2-3 hours at a time getting these IVs administered. I didn't have the time at that point. So we went with Plaquenil, which is hydroxychloroquine. People may know that from the virus. But so that was to tamp down the inflammation. I also took another, I want to say it was, I'm drawing a blank on the name. It starts with an H. But a bunch of medications. I took Lovenox in the beginning, and then the cycle that ended up working, There was one right before that we didn't finish that cycle because I ovulated through the medication. So when I went in for my check, my progesterone was already spiked. And so my doctor said, you've already ovulated. Like,
It was
so,
canceled.
right. We canceled that one. And then they added Lupron to suppress me going into the next cycle. And so we had the Lupron, we had the immunology protocol, and that ended up being the positive. And I was like, my doctor loves me so much. I started spotting. And so I was freaking out. So I called her and I sent her an email and she called me back. It was like 11 o'clock at night. And she was like, this is probably a good sign. Like, don't freak out. Like, this is probably implantation bleeding. Don't freak out. It's easier said than done when you've kind of this journey. I had vowed not to test because of what happened before where I got the positive. So I was like, I just want to know the end. But of course, at that point, like come midnight, I was like, it's the next day. Technically, I'm going to go ahead and start testing. And I got a positive. And so at that point, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound, I became a pee on a stick addict and started testing like crazy, and they were all getting darker. You know, had the first response, and even though everyone's like the medical community says that's not a thing of it getting darker, they're like either you're pregnant or you're not. I was still like diligently, and so every day I did it until my beta because I was like, I just want to know if it drops or whatever. And I had a really big first beta, so I felt like that was a sign, like this is it, your take home baby is coming.
How did it feel?
It felt surreal. It really did. I could have done cartwheels. It was amazing, but it was also scary, right? Having had the miscarriage before, there was a lot going on. And then I had shared it with a few people, and the people that I shared it with kept asking, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? And then that was making me anxious. I was like, please stop asking me that. I'll let you know if I'm not feeling okay. I don't think until probably I had my anatomy scan at 18 weeks. That's when I started feeling like this is really going to happen. And then at 24 weeks, we got to viability. It's like, okay, but it's like, even then, until you have the baby in your arms, like after miscarriages and like the whole journey, it doesn't really feel real. Like I almost was like afraid to be excited, but I pushed through it. Like I had a baby shower. I went to California. I celebrated with my family, was showered with so much love. It was amazing. And then, yeah, I went a full term because that was another thing. I know a lot of us advanced maternal age moms, like they give you time of like, you have to deliver at 37 weeks, but the pregnancy was seamless. Like I didn't end up with high blood pressure. I didn't get gestational diabetes. Like it was really fine. The one part that was challenging for me of why, in addition to my age, I have one kidney. I gave my sister a kidney in 2006. And so if something happens, like if you go into preeclampsia, like there's protein in your urine, your kidney, like for me, that could be deadly because I've only got the one. I don't have anything to balance it out. So they watched that pretty closely. And it was really fine until after delivery going in.
Sorry, I have a question. Going back to your pregnancy, How does this compare to your pregnancy whenever you were 23?
It was, for the most part, more relaxed, even though that sounds weird because I didn't know about like loss and everything else. But at 23, there's a lot of judgment around, and people are like, you might be ruining your life. And so I had a lot I felt to prove at that point, where this time I didn't. Like everybody was celebrating it and was excited because they'd known like what I had gone through. So from that perspective, it felt good physically. And also in the first pregnancy, I had intrauterine growth restriction, IUGR. I didn't have any of this time, right? I mean, I had youth on my side at that point, but I mean, I'm in a different like socioeconomic status at this point. So I was eating well, I was resting well, I was continuing my yoga, I was going to acupuncture, like it was all good. I felt good. I felt energized. I was like really excited to be pregnant. I was really like, I just loved my pregnant body. Like I embraced all of that, talked to my baby all the time. So that part felt good. It was just really tamping down the anxiety, like the quiet little thing, the little voice in my head that's like, don't get too excited, But other than that, it was grand.
Mm-hmm. And so did you find out the gender whenever you did the non-invasive test?
I didn't do the non-invasive test.
Oh, you didn't?
Sorry. I did not. I decided not to. One, because it is it's called a test, but it's really not. It gives you like indicators of it and like percentages of it. So to make it conclusive, you either have to do the, what is it? The chorionic, I can't remember. What is it where they go into they inject a large needle into your uterus and take out the fluid. There's two tests, but they risk miscarriage, and I wasn't going to do that. And the results of the test are either going to tell you, yes, something is wrong and you have a decision, or nothing is wrong, right? But if something is wrong, you have the decision to terminate or not. And I knew I was not willing to terminate. So I didn't take the test. And I'm like diagnosed. I have an anxiety disorder, which my MFM was great. She let me keep my Zoloft the whole time. And I did not have like a regular OBGYN. I just had the maternal fetal medicine, who obviously is an OB as well. But so I didn't have like to run around to two doctors and sort of ferret information between the two. But I stayed on my Zoloft. I started off at 50 milligrams, which was my regular dose. And then I went up to 100 milligrams as I got bigger. Right. And the blood flow increased just to help keep me even. But I felt like having that test was going to create more anxiety than it could have come back fine. But if it didn't come back fine, I knew I was not going to take action to stop the pregnancy. And so I just did not want to have that in my head. So I didn't know the gender. I didn't find out the gender at the anatomy. I didn't know until birth. And they ask you at the anatomy scan, like, do you know the gender? Do you want to know the gender? So everybody was great. So through all my ultrasounds, I had to say ahead of time, I don't know the gender. I don't want to know the gender. So they would just tell me like, look away or close your eyes, or, when they were checking the bits. And yeah, I didn't want to know. I needed a surprise at the end of it all.
I like it. Was there any products or anything that helped you through pregnancy that you could recommend?
I've got to think about that one. I used a lot of products. I didn't worry about stretch marks because I didn't have them at my first pregnancy. Luckily, I had no nausea. I took I didn't have, let me take that back. I wasn't like vomiting. I'll say that. There's some moments where I felt queasy. So I had like the little preggy pops, not the ones on the stick, not the lollipop, but the like lozenges. Lemon I craved like crazy. So anything that was like tart I don't think I used, definitely. So I am a woman who wears a thong. So I was on the hunt for the best maternity thong. So that I explored with a lot, which is hilarious. I have them now. I'm like, because I'm not sure if I want to have one more. I'm decluttering, as you know, but I'm not sure if I want to have more and more. I kind of want to save some of them. So that was huge. Bra hunting was huge. So like Kindred Braverly was helpful for that because my boobs, like I'm already like a large chest. They just were ginormous. And so trying to find comfort there. I worked my first day of leave was the day before my induction. So I worked all the way through the pregnancy. So pee in a pod was clutch in outfits for work. I loved the clothes because I didn't want to feel frumpy. Like my first pregnancy, I kind of just wore oversized clothing. Obviously, I have a very different job now. I have a very corporate job. So I had to get like proper maternity clothes. And so that was good. And it made me feel good too. It just, I don't know how to explain it. Like I got up and got dressed every day, put on my makeup, I just felt like really womanly, as weird as that sounds. Like I loved it. I loved being pregnant. I definitely I have a lot of Converse, platform Converse. I recommend like flat shoes, not heels. I did heels. We had an award ceremony at work and I had to present and I wore little kitten heels. And then as soon as I was done presenting, I put my other shoes back. I know some women like wear their large, 5-inch. That was not for me. I needed it to be comfortable. I'm trying to think what else. Belly bands helped. Pregnancy pillow. Oh my God. I loved that. I ended up having a C-section. So I kept the pregnancy pillow probably for another month after I got back from the hospital. Yeah, I think whatever makes you comfortable, and like try different things for oils and stuff. Before, as part of my fertility journey, I got rid of like anything that had phthalates in it or anything that restricted fertility. So I was like, the home was already pretty clean in that respect. And so I looked for like organic belly butter, not for stretch marks, but massaging it felt good. Massaging my stomach, it got really tight. I have a very innie belly button and it didn't completely go out, but it stretched like crazy. And once upon a time I had a belly ring. I haven't worn it in forever, but the piercing was still there. That was hurting like crazy. So I bought these little colloidal patches that kept it moist. So it wasn't itchy and hurting because that's very distracting to be like in a meeting, scratching your belly button, like not cool. So just whatever like made me comfortable. And a lot of people are like, don't spend money on maternity. You're not going to be pregnant that long. And I was just like, I want to be comfortable. Like, this is what I've waited for this. I've dreamed for this. I want to be comfortable. I live in New York. There are very like distinct seasons. And so I needed sweaters and like sweater dresses. And so I just went for it. And I didn't, I mean, granted I have a clutter problem, so I'm not recommending anyone do that. But for me, that's what felt right. Yeah, be comfortable. Like, especially in the trying to conceive community, we've worked very, very hard. Like, give yourself grace, celebrate, make it easy on yourself. Like, don't take one for the team. Do what feels good.
And how did you prepare for birth and baby?
I took a class. So the hospital that I delivered at offered childbirth classes, and I took that class. I had no memory of like what I did before other than breathing. And I hired a doula, right? My sister came out from California to be my birth partner, but I hired a doula. We had several meetings virtually, and then she came in person prior to my birth, came to my home. And so that was really like, I used a yoga ball. I was all prepared for a natural birth. But at the end of the day, my goal was a take-home baby. So it wasn't like the first time I had a natural birth and I pushed all the way through. I didn't need that rite of passage. Like, the most important thing was healthy, happy baby that gets earthside. And so I ended up with like an emergency C-section because after 2 days of induction, I was 4 centimeters dilated. And so they were like, you can keep trying. And I'm like, nope, I have nothing to prove. Let's get this baby here. But yeah, and I continued my yoga. So if you're exercising before you're pregnant, you can continue that exercise. I mean, check with your provider. This is what was told to me. You can continue that exercise. And so I did continue it until the 3rd trimester. At that point, I was diagnosed with, oh my God, what is it? I had a lot of fluid a lot of amniotic fluid. I can't think of the name of it. So it made it difficult to breathe, right? Because it was just a lot of belly at that point. So I reduced my yoga and I stopped like doing the treadmill, but I walk. I mean, I live in New York, so I've got to walk to the subway and back, but they encourage you to do a lot of walking. I did a lot of leg stretches, and I wish I would have done more sit-ups, but I can do them now. That ended up being a whole other thing. Like, those ab muscles in the weight, work on your ab muscles. Like, there are things to do. And also in the weight, do research. The world has so many things like baby-led weaning and all of that. Like, I wish I would have gotten a jump on that. I'm catching up quickly. I'm a fast learner, but in the weight, like, find those things to do. I would recommend, read up on beyond when the baby gets here. Because I did a lot of like what preparing for childbirth would be like and like the immediate time after birth, but not further along. So now I've been studying like, what things to talk to baby about and like exercises to do. And like, we have a blast doing it. And I'm fortunate enough to have 6 months off after delivery. So
Nice.
I'm now getting like anxiety about the childcare. Like, I found a place, but I think I'm not going to start him until January, like full time. I'm going to do a couple days at home with someone and then a couple days in the daycare, just so it's not shocking to him. It may be fine. I may be overthinking it, but I'm just like, I got puppies. I got puppies in the middle of the pandemic when I had to go to work and I was dropping them off at daycare. They freaked out like the first week. So I'm assuming like we're all sentient beings. I'm assuming it might be a little stressful for him. So at least if he's home a couple days a week and there's a provider that comes into the home, that's less of a shock, and then sort of acclimate him into the daycare by having just not full time, like 5 days. And I'm taking him, there's a backup daycare in my office in the building that I work. And so I'm going to take him down. It's in the basement. And so take him there so I can pop in and visit him. I'm going back the week of Thanksgiving. So he'll only have 3 days. And then we'll have 4 days together again to sort of recoup. I'm trying to like predict what might go wrong. So to make it easier for him and for me.
Sure. And what about cravings? Did you have any during pregnancy?
Lots of sour. So lots of everything lemon. Milkshakes, which I'm still drinking a lot of milkshakes. I just loved like thick chocolate milkshakes. What other cravings did I have? Pickles, like that was so stereotypical. I loved pickles. They're nice and sour. I'm trying to think. I think those were like my primary. I was bummed that I couldn't have like sushi. I couldn't have carbonara because it's like raw eggs are in there. I love my eggs over medium, like all of those things. And so get your fill of those while you can. Get your fill of all of the sushi, all of the medium rare steaks, all of that, because you will not have it for 9 months. Luckily, I had no alcohol cravings. Like I had during my transfer, I got a strong dislike for wine. And so that was easy. Coffee, though, my MFM let me continue my coffee, which was great. But I had to limit it to like 180. Most people say 200 milligrams if you're going to have it. She wanted it at 180 because that can contribute to intrauterine growth restriction and because I had the history of it. But that was a lifesaver because some people told me like their OB was like, absolutely not. And so mine was very gracious and very like gave me a lot of grace, which was greatly appreciated.
Yeah. So when were you scheduled for your induction? You said 36?
No, 39. I
39.
was,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I went on May 31st
Mm-hmm.
and my due date was June 3rd. So I ended up delivering him that Friday. So I was 39 weeks and 5 days. I was one day shy of or 6 days. I was one day shy of a full 40.
Well, take us back to that day that you went to the hospital.
Yeah, so I went in the evening. My sister, like I said, was here from California. So we had like a big meal. The doctor warned me that I wasn't going to like the hospital foods. We had a big meal. I had my bags already packed, showed up at the hospital that night. They were having some emergency. So I ended up in the waiting room for quite a bit, but they finally got me into a room. They started off with a cervical ripener. I'm going to forget the name, but basically a tablet they put on my cervix to soften it. We started off with that. I got to 3 centimeters and then they put a Foley catheter in so there's like a balloon that they put into the opening of your cervix and then they fill it with saline. Hurt like the dickens. Like, oh my God. I was like on the bed. I was crawling away from the practitioner and she was like, come back. And my doctor wasn't there because it was the night before. She was going to be there all day Thursday, right? I went in on Wednesday. So I was just like, oh my God. And that's when I started to like think about, I might not make it through a natural. Like this is not how I remember it. So I got to 4 centimeters and then I did not progress past that. So they added Pitocin. They told me that whatever the unit is, they weren't going to go above 20. So we finally got to 20. I was still at 4 centimeters. We ended up going to like 40 over the next 24 hours. At that point, I had a strong feeling we were going to end up with an emergency C-section. So at that point, I asked for an epidural. I was having contractions, but I really couldn't discern them. Like I could see them on the monitor, but I wasn't in pain. So when the anesthesiologist came, I explained to him, I'm not in pain, but I'm concerned that I'm headed for a C-section and I don't want to be knocked out, right? If you don't have enough time to get the epidural in, depending on the circumstances, they put you to sleep. That means a doula can't come in, my birthing partner can't come in. So I was like, can you put it in and not like give meds, like basically a dry epidural? He was like, no, we're going to have to test it ahead of time because it may not be connected properly. And there needs to be something coming through there, right? And they already had me on a saline IV. So my mobility was limited. And then he said, once you get this, you're going to be bedbound. You're not going to be able to go to the bathroom. They're going to bring you a tray. And so I was like, okay, give me a little bit. So I waited 2 hours and then he came back and he put it in, which was a very trippy feeling because you can feel your legs, but you can't really like put weight on them. Like you're not in full control of them, but they leave it so you can feel it for pushing. So that was like a weird, like there was one time where I went to get out of the bed and the doula was like, what are you doing? Because I was thinking I could walk. And she was like, no, you have to lay down. And it was amazing having the doula there. We played like meditation music and there's a thing where it's like not gong music, but the water bowls where and so that we played that music. The room that I had was great. It was overlooking the Hudson. I could see like the water out. So it was very calm in the beginning. And then I was getting frustrated as it was kind of going on. And there's a lot of people. And so it was a teaching hospital. So I asked for residents not to be like, I didn't want, if it were a fellow, I was fine. I didn't want residents. And so that I would have to wait longer, which was okay. But there was a lot of people. Like you don't go to the hospital to rest. That's for sure. People, they're in and out of your room like every 20 minutes and touching and prodding. And it was a lot. I did have the monitor on my belly that allowed me to walk around. So with the doula, but they wouldn't let me walk the hallway. So in my mind, I imagine, I'm like sprinting down the hallway and they were like, you have to walk in your room, ma'am. And so that was like a little circle. That was no fun. So I was ready to like not do that. We did some positioning of like, what is it called? Like a king's pose. So I'm squatting on the bed. There's a pillow behind me supporting me. But basically I was just up. That was before the epidural. And there was no progress. So we were trying to get me dilated. But at that point, it was all calm. But that's when I was just like, this is not, because with my daughter, I was like 6 hours from start to finish, from when they broke my water to when she arrived. So, oh yeah, I didn't mention that. They did break my water after the Foley, which of course there's a time clock once your water is broken, right? Because of the risk of infection. So you have 24 hours. I wanted to call it before the 24 hours because we were going into the night shift. No offense to anyone who works at the hospitals at night, but there's usually not as much staff and they're usually a little stretched thin. So I didn't want to be fully in the night shift when I delivered just because. And so once I made the decision to go ahead and do it, I'd ask, can they use like the same incision that where my kidney was removed so I wouldn't have another one? They inspected that. They were like, no, it's a little too low. Fine. And so once I made the decision, it was like quick, fast, in a hurry. At that point, my sister had come back to my apartment to like rest. And so she wasn't there. Like within 30 minutes max, I was in the delivery room.
Wow.
And so she didn't make it, but my doula was in there with me. But like packing up the room, everything had to be done. I couldn't move. So I'm trying to explain to my doula like where everything goes in my suitcase. It was just like a mess. I had my laptop out. I brought like this long extension cord because I brought like a laptop. I needed to charge my phone. It was like trying to get all of that packed up straight away. But no matter what, I wanted to make sure the doula could come in the room. Yeah. Right. So I'd be like, worst case scenario, they'll pack it up because they were insistent, like somebody else needed the room. I'm like, but I just decided that I was going. Like, how could someone else need this room right now? But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. I'm sure they would have charged me for it. So let's get out of there. Yeah. And then we went into the opera. Oh, go ahead.
What was the deciding factor that made you ready for a C-section?
We were coming up on the clock of the 24 hours of having my water broken. And there was no progression. Like he was at, I want to say like a -2 station. He wasn't even at 0. And I can't remember my effacement. I just wasn't progressing. And I was at a very high dose of Pitocin. His heart was going up and down, which they said it could be a sign of distress and or infection. And so I didn't want it to come to a place of like, his heart is high and remaining high, which is a clear sign of infection, or his heart rate is like it's dropping, anything, right? And because I had the polyhydramnios, that's what it was, with the extra fluid, there was a risk of his cord slipping out. So they tested it before they even broke my water, but the way he was positioned, that would just make a complicated vaginal birth, right? Like if there was a prolapse, if it came out before. Then they did an ultrasound. Like once I said, I think I want to explore the C-section, and his position, they were like, oh yeah, no, he was never going to come down. Like it wasn't, there's a specific breach for it. I can't remember. And he had been breached in like my 32nd week of pregnancy, but he had repositioned himself. And so like all of that together, yeah, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to go into Saturday, right? I knew if I didn't at that point call it, at some point late Friday night, we were going to be at the 24-hour mark. And so that is just what made sense. And at the time, my doula was like, do you want to call your therapist? Like after I said I wanted, and I was like, no. I talked to her about it later. I was like, I feel like you were questioning my agency over me deciding to, but I get it. Doulas are there for natural childbirth, right? But it's like, I think I may have been her first or second IVF patient. Like we've gone through so much. Like there's no dishonor if I have a C-section at this point. Of course, a vaginal birth would be amazing, but there's no dishonor. Like I've already been a warrior to get to this place. Like I need to get my baby in my arms. I would hate to have like put my ego first and be like, I have to do it. And then he have complications or worse as a result of that. So I was like, let's do the surgery. And I got to be awake. They put him on my cheek, like right after they lifted up the baby, and because first the surgeon was like, who's going to call it for the gender? So they lifted him up over the screen that they have. And I was like so in awe and fighting back tears. Like I couldn't even get the words out that it's a boy. So I finally just like squeaked out boy. And then he wasn't like screaming or anything. So I was also like, get him somewhere. And then the doula ended up cutting his umbilical cord for me. They brought him over. Everything was fine with him. And they brought him over and he was hungry right away. So they put him next to my face. And so we have photos of him. It looks like he's trying to kiss me. Really, he's rooting, right? He's looking for a boob. But I couldn't nurse him until I got to the recovery room because they were like sewing me up. So they kept him there, like holding him. And the nurse was like, this is the best thing, the next best thing for him because he can't be on your breast. And it was just like a huge sigh of relief. Like he's finally here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else were you thinking and feeling during those moments?
I was like a little panicky. They asked me, was I okay? Because my heart was racing like uncontrollably. The thing that I wasn't expecting, the only thing I had a sensation of was like my head and my shoulders, like not even down my forearm. So I asked the doula, just please put your hand on my like shoulder to help ground me. So I was freaking out. Like I couldn't feel anything else. You can feel the tugging, but it's not really like it almost feels like if you were in bed and someone's tugging sheets next to you. It doesn't feel like it's part of your body, really. It's just like this tugging. So that I was just like praying and doing Hail Marys and, like, let's just breathe through it, get him here. And I think at that point, my temperature was rising. There was a lot going on. And it felt like very controlled chaos in there. So I was just trying to like breathe and stay focused on that. But I was super excited to meet him. And so that was my focal point of like, you're going to meet your baby soon. You're going to meet your baby soon. It'll be just a little bit. But yeah, like nervous. I knew like his digits were going to be there because we had seen the ultrasound. I just didn't know the gender. I obviously didn't know exactly what he would look like. But these new ultrasounds are amazing. Like all of my scans were 3D ultrasounds. And so like I could see what the nose was going to look like. And, I had a good sense of it. One of the sonographers was like, he's going to have long eyelashes. And when I told my MFM, she was like, just don't put too much in that. Like sometimes we think it is and it is. He does have long eyelashes. They're very thin though, but they looked very prominent on the sonogram. So yeah, it was, there was so much excitement and just joy. Just like once like he was on my face, it was just pure bliss. Like he's here alive and well. And I'm getting, these pseudo kisses. Like it just is like, Mom, I'm here. I'm here. I'm yours. Yeah. And I was honestly worried. So like with the donor conceived, obviously both donors, but with the egg, I was like, am I going to feel connected? Like once he gets here, and it just didn't miss a beat. Like he is my son, he definitely is my son. We did a lot of skin to skin that helps like with the breastfeeding. Also, it releases the bonding hormone. So it just was like seamless in that way. I did have that thought like at the end of the pregnancy, though, will I feel as connected as I did like with my daughter? Like, will I feel like it's my child or will it feel like someone else's? And it was seamless. Totally my son.
Yeah, I think that thought creeps in a little bit with me using donor eggs too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's natural, right? There's a part of our biology, a part of procreation is like to carry some of ourselves on, like that's in our genetics, right? And
Definitely.
So I think I think if you're not worried about it, it would be a little suspect, honestly. That's just my opinion. I'm not a therapist. But having that reassurance and I just feel the bond more and more. I just like stare at him and, just in amazement.
Yeah. And how did breastfeeding go?
Breastfeeding was a struggle in the beginning, quite honestly. It was a struggle. So I've learned when you have a cesarean, your body is not releasing the hormones at the same rate for breastfeeding as if you had a vaginal delivery. My milk came in while I was in the hospital. Obviously, I was there longer because I had the C-section. So the milk came in. I think it would have been fine, except he was losing weight. And one of the pediatricians was not fond of that. So that started stressing me out, which obviously stress is not good for breast milk production, right? So once we got home, I felt like it was better. But he did lose weight. We did have to I had to go to the pediatrician the next day, which was a whole other complication because I had planned to go here in New York. There's it's a Korean postpartum facility. I'd planned to check in there, but I couldn't because one, I had the C-section and one, he was underweight not underweight. He was worried. They were worried about his weight. Like he wasn't below the 20th percentile at that point, but because he was losing, they were concerned. So luckily the pediatrician is in walking distance from my home. So I would just put him in his like stroller, his Nuna stroller, and carry him on there, right? It has like the car seat attached. I didn't have to get into a car and go, but we were in every other day for weight checks for him. I did a lot. I worked with a lactation consultant. I did a lot to build up the breast milk. I had to do power pumping, which if you don't know about it, hopefully you never have to know about it. It's an ordeal. But finally it got up. But it was a great form of connection with the baby as well. A great like bonding. Yeah. So we were just here. And my sister had gone home at that point because I was supposed to go to the retreat to the postpartum facility. So it was a little bit stressful at home. Like I didn't have meals prepared because I wasn't going to be here. So I would just say have a backup plan just in case you end up with an emergency C-section. Just expect the unexpected. But yeah, it took a while. It was more difficult than the first time. Someone said, is it harder because you're older? I haven't read any data on that, so I don't think so. Like I don't know. I didn't have that experience. I think really a lot to do with the stress of this pediatrician was not really pro breastfeeding. And at one point she told me, like, I'm not going to let him out of the hospital until you give him formula. So I had to get the social worker involved and like all of this. I was just like, no, you can't make me do that. Like we can have criteria for his exit, for his release, but that can't be it.
Yeah.
I got like the little breast massager. So those helped. It was like a warming massager and it vibrates. So that helped with the letdown. It's going fine now, but in the beginning it was like touch and go, but I was prepared to like go the distance. I know some people are worried, like I'm not making enough milk. So they go to formula straight away. Well, that also impacts your production, right? Because it's a supply and demand thing.
Yeah.
And so at that point I felt confident to go the distance with it and not say, oh, okay, I'll go straight to formula. Like I knew in my heart, that's what I wanted to do. And that was what was best for both of us. Fed is best. I'm not saying, I'm not shaming anyone who decides formula is the best for them, but I really wanted to give it a go. And I know supply is not really established until like those first 12 weeks. So it took a while, but he was growing. He's not going to be like, he's right now, I think he's in the 23rd percentile for weight, but he's in the 86th percentile for height. So he's like a string bean. He's going to be a tall person. And so, yeah, we just had his 4-month checkup on Monday of last week. And the doctor was like, I'm not worried about it. He's fine. We are starting baby-led weaning, though. She cleared him at 4 months. I thought it was going to be 6 months. But so we're practicing with food. But food before 1 is just for fun. So if he eats it, he eats it. If he doesn't, he doesn't. He's still getting enough in breast milk. Yeah.
And how was your recovery?
Recovery was interesting. So I was up and walking that night, but it hurt like the dickens. It really did. I was semi-prepared for it because I had a similar incision for when I had my kidney removed, obviously not through my uterus, but through my abdomen, which is where the pain was. I think having done a lot of yoga helped me because the nurses kept saying, you're moving very well but it was, I think because it made me a little more like nimble, it was a bit better, but it still hurt when I was moving, even though they said I was quote unquote moving well, it was not without pain. So they have I had a pain med schedule. We stayed, if they were not there on time, I was hitting that buzzer for them to be there on time because you want it in your system before, the pain really kicks in. My problem was because I only have one kidney, I can't have ibuprofen. So most people get like acetaminophen, ibuprofen, and then some other, like, I think I had oxy something, whatever, a controlled narcotic, but I couldn't have the Motrin. So we really had to stay on top of it with the Tylenol and the other meds. The control substance I had every 4 hours. And I think the Tylenol I could have every 6 hours. But I made myself get up and walk. And like I had him in his little, I call it a buggy, but it's their little bassinet. It's on wheels, right? So I would push it up and down the hall. We'd like walk to the nursery and walk back. Yeah, I knew from the kidney surgery, like the sooner you move around, the better it gets. And so your muscles don't get tight. They told me not to take the incision tape off, like let it fall off. They were checking me, like making sure they did a lot of pushing to like push out excess blood and make sure it was like I wasn't hemorrhaging or like anything was wrong. So they did a lot of checking. And then they ran a lot of tests. So that's when my creatinine and other numbers related to my kidney were coming back wonky. But I had so much IV fluid. I think that also contributed to it because then I went to the nephrologist, the kidney doctor later, and he was like, it's fine. You're fine. But they wanted to do an ultrasound of my remaining kidney. And then the sonographer was like, can I do the other side? And I was like, where the kidney is gone. And she was like, yeah, just so we have a reference. I was like, I don't think insurance is going to pay for that. Like my kidney's gone since 2006. So no. The baby went to the nursery twice. The bill for the nursery was $13,000. I wanted the baby to stay in there, but there was one day I wanted a shower. So I sent him there. And then when I had the ultrasound, the baby had to go. $13,000. I mean, insurance covered it. But when you get the bill, you're like, because they keep telling you, send the baby to the nursery. And I was like, no, I want him here with me. Nobody mentions that. Like, I was like, oh my God.
It's a service.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. And how are you today?
I'm great. I am great today. I feel like we were finally in a rhythm. We've finally gotten a groove. I did a little bit of sleep training. I don't like to hear him cry. He's in his fourth month, so I'm expecting a little bit of regression. But I think granted, I haven't gone back to work yet. So I think that's going to be a whole other thing, which is why I'm working hard to like declutter and get systems in place now. But yeah, like mentally, I've been great. I do see a therapist. I also see like a psychiatric nurse who does my Zoloft. So I see her once a month, and I see a therapist every other week. And the MFM asked that I increase my therapy before delivery because she wanted someone to be like identifying my baseline. I mean, I had already been seeing that therapist, but I was seeing him once a month. So we upped it in case there was any like abnormalities or something strange. And the weird thing is because I have the YouTube, I edit my own video so I can kind of see myself. Like editing it is a different thing of like how I feel. Like I can see if I'm like kind of off. And so, yeah, they just wanted to make sure I was okay, especially because I am a single person and I'm now here by myself with the baby. I did have postpartum help. The doula came and did postpartum doula work. So that was nice as well. Mainly like helping like do the laundry, do the dishes. So I wasn't stressed out about that. That was really nice. I highly recommend that if it's an option for you, like just coming in and like doing meals. I actually ended up cooking for her sometime too, because it's hard to like for me to just accept help. But she was here. She would come in from, what was it, like 9:30 to 2:30. I didn't want a night doula. Like let's just all sleep, at home in our own beds. But yeah, that was super helpful. And so now I did that for like the first 2 months, and now I'm on my own, which it's been fine. Like we go hang out in Central Park. I've got 2 Yorkies. The Yorkies are getting used to him. One of them is like motherly to him, and the other one's like, why does he get all the new toys? So yeah.
That's cute. A new dynamic.
Yes. Yeah.
And you said mentally you're doing really great?
Yes, I am, thankfully. Yeah. I'm already thinking, well, I don't have a lot of time because I'm older. Like, should I have another one? So the doctor said I have to wait until he's at least 9 months. So it would be 18 months in between. But that I would definitely have to have a C-section. If I didn't want to have a C-section, I'd have to wait additional 6 months beyond that. So I'm trying to figure that out. I would definitely say when you're pregnant, start figuring out your daycare. Like if you don't have someone obviously my family is not here on the East Coast. So I put him on the wait list last year in November. I didn't know the gender. I didn't know anything else. And they just had called and said like, the spot is open. I said, I'm going to wait now till January for him to come. And they're like, that's fine. But if you're in a big city, it can be a little competitive. And like this place, it's only four infants to 1 teacher. So that felt good for me. Like I just hear a lot. Like I didn't want to do an in-home daycare. I just wanted to make sure he was safe. I mean, obviously all parents do, but I was just trying to figure out like what made sense for us. And they're open until 7 at night in case I end up having to work late or whatever. So yeah.
That's really nice.
So far, so good. Yeah.
Good. Do you have anything else you want to add to your pregnancy or birth?
I wish I had thought more about a cesarean section, of that being like a real possibility. I don't think I earnestly considered it, but I'm happy the way everything ended up. I don't have any regrets about that. It was really good. It was, yeah. I'm very grateful for the experience and for the care providers. And
what has been your biggest challenge being pregnant in your 40s, in your 50s?
50s.
Oh yeah.
Biggest challenge. I don't know. I felt healthier in this pregnancy in my 50s than I did at the one in my 20s. Quite honestly, I just really loved being pregnant, but I did have to take naps. I will say that I don't remember taking naps the first time around. So when I got home from work, I had to take a nap. Like I was exhausted, but I'm on my feet a lot at work too. Like I'm running around in the building looking at stuff because I work on projects and leading meetings, you know, and I'm an introvert, so like leading a meeting can be exhaustive. Like I know I talk a lot, but like after this is over, I'm going to just get to sit and be quiet for a while. Like I'm a gregarious introvert. And so I would say I would get tired. It was much more marked than the first time. Like they say the first trimester is going to be your most tired. Like I was tired first and third.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get that big like reprieve everyone said.
Mm.
So naps were a thing.
Yeah, those sounds really nice all the time.
Yes. Yes.
Is there anything you'd recommend that would help prepare someone for pregnancy and birth over 40?
Be as healthy as you can be, like make conscious decisions about what you eat, prepare yourself mentally for it. It is, you know, like for me, yoga, acupuncture, meditation helped with that. Like I feel like to be grounded and centered is really important in it. And I had a relatively easy pregnancy. I know some people like have really wicked morning sickness, and I didn't have that. But I think being grounded mentally before going into it, if that happens, you're prepared for that. Yeah. Yeah. And keep exercising. If you're not exercising and you're still trying, start some sort of exercise. It's good mentally too. Like it gives you good endorphins. But I think just being physical and being in your body helps.
Yeah. And what advice would you give yourself when you were pregnant if you could go back?
Enjoy it more. I wish that like at the beginning I could have just enjoyed it more and just reminded myself it's going to be okay. What's meant to be is going to be. And yeah, just enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. And what would you tell that woman that's over 40 trying to get pregnant? What would you tell her?
Be vigilant about your healthcare, about information. Some doctors are going to want to take the easy way out and not give you a lot of information. You really want to find a doctor that will partner with you. And please remember to advocate for yourself, right? And that's why the partnership is so important, because you want to be heard and seen and have what you're saying taken seriously. There's a lot at stake, I feel like, when you're older, just because of the timeline, right? You don't have 10 years to try per se, or 15 years like you would if you were 29 discovering a fertility issue. And so, yeah, partner with your healthcare provider, eat well, like think about things like anti-inflammatory diets. Like you want to stack the deck in your favor. You want to create that receptive body. Get all of your testing done, get your regular pap smears. If you're of the age of still getting pap smears after 50, you don't get them anymore. You get something else. But yeah, just take care of yourself, get your mammograms, all of those things, go to the dentist. There's bacteria on your teeth that could impact your health. So make sure you're getting your cleanings quarterly and all that fun stuff. And just prepare yourself. Sometimes when we're going through this, you can decide if you want to share or not share, right? I found that in the end, sharing helped me. I know some people who are like early 40s talk to me a lot about like their family gatherings. So when are you going to have a baby? Are you still trying? Or, just relax. Like you have to figure out how to navigate that. I recommend just being honest with people. Like that's not the type of support I need. I think it's important that the people who really want to support us for them to ask, like, how can I support you through this? And have an honest answer for them. If it's, I don't need, you to ask, I'll tell you when I'm ready. Like, be frank about that. I don't think this is the time to worry about other people's feelings. I'm not saying be rude, but put yourself first and what your needs are first, because like I said, it is a journey and you just want to, like any long journey, you want to be prepared to go the distance. And so, yeah, advocate for yourself, both with your healthcare, with your families, your partner, whoever it is, so that they can support you in the way that makes sense for you.
And where can our listeners connect with you? You mentioned your YouTube channel.
Yeah, so I'm on YouTube at Simply Tanika, T as in Tom, A, N as in Nancy, IKA. Also on Instagram, simply.tanika. I talk about all things fertility. I am, the fertility fairy godmother around the interwebs. And so if you need encouragement or help, you can DM me or, however you want to connect with me. My email address is also there. So feel free to reach out. Even if you just need encouragement or you're like, hey, I had a bad day, I had a bad cycle, whatever is going on, or I don't know about these meds, or I'm definitely willing to help you and advocate for you in that way. I believe in transparency. I think if the more we talk about what we're going through, the more people are able to support us. There's a lot of stigma around miscarriage. We don't want to tell people, even not sharing about our pregnancies because we're worried about miscarriage, but celebrate in the way that makes sense to you. But yeah, that's not the question you asked. Yes, you can reach me on YouTube. You can reach me on Instagram.
I will leave all those links in the description also.
Okay.
Tanika, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was so beautiful.
Yay, thank you. Sorry, the music is kicking up. I'm in Harlem. They're like going on outside.
And thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you next Monday.